The sun blazed mercilessly over Quezon City, its heat bouncing off the cracked pavements and the roofs of rusty jeepneys that rumbled through the streets. Vendors shouted over one another, "Isda, Sariwang Gulay, Sampung Piso Lang," their voices blending with the honks of tricycles and the endless stream of chatter. But amidst the chaos of daily life, a small figure moved almost unnoticed. Her name was Liza. She was 12 years old, but her face carried the tiredness of someone far older. Her hair was tangled, her slippers mismatched and worn to thin rubber sheets, and in her fragile hands she held an old guitar. The strings were frayed, one missing entirely, but it was her family's only tool for survival. Her father, a thin man with sunken cheeks, bent down to her level. His eyes held no cruelty, but desperation lived inside them. "Liza," he said softly, yet firmly, "you must sing today. We need rice. We need food. If you don't sing, we don't eat tonight." Liza wanted to protest. She wanted to say her throat hurt, that her stomach ached, that her heart longed to be in school like the other children she sometimes glimpsed with their books and uniforms. But she couldn't. She saw the tired lines etched into her father's face, the sweat dripping from his brow, the hopelessness he tried to hide. And so she nodded. At the corner of a busy intersection, Liza stopped. The jeepneys lined up, their colorful sides covered with stickers of saints and movie stars. Exhaust fumes filled the air. She closed her eyes for a moment, clutching the guitar, and whispered to herself, "Kaya ko, too, I can do this." Then, in a trembling voice, she began to sing. Her voice was thin at first, nearly drowned by the chaos of traffic, but there was something raw and piercing about it. Some pedestrians turned their heads, curious. Her song wasn't polished, yet it carried weight, a child's sorrow wrapped in melody. She sang of longing, of hunger, of dreams she didn't even fully understand. Coins clinked into her small plastic container. A woman on her way to the market gave her 5 pesos. A student tossed in a peso without even looking. Others passed by without notice, stepping around her as if she were part of the street itself. But Liza continued, her voice rising above the noise. Every lyric she sang was more than sound, it was survival. And though she was only a child, in that moment she carried the burden of her family's fate. The city roared around her, indifferent, yet within her fragile voice was a cry that begged to be heard. By sunset, the golden glow of the sky bathed Quezon City in a softer light, but for Liza, the weight of the day only grew heavier. She and her father moved to the entrance of a small eatery, one of those carinderias where workers came for dinner after a long shift. The smell of fried chicken and garlic rice filled the air, making her stomach twist with hunger. Her father positioned her at the corner. "Sing here," he urged, standing close enough to keep watch but far enough to make her appear alone. Liza gripped her guitar tighter, swallowing back her exhaustion, and began again. Her voice cut through the chatter of diners. At first, people ignored her, too busy with their plates of adobo and steaming bowls of sinigang. But then, something about her singing, its fragile strength, made a few turn their heads. Her notes cracked, yet there was soul in them, the kind that could not be faked. A young couple eating at a corner table stopped chewing, mesmerized by her effort. But not everyone welcomed her. A man, irritated, waved his hand dismissively. "Anak, wag dito, nakakakalo ka, you're disturbing my meal." His voice was sharp, and Liza's cheeks burned with shame. She lowered her head, but her father motioned for her to continue. And so she sang on. Each note scraped against her raw throat. Her tiny stomach growled audibly, yet she fought to finish the song. To her, every lyric was a coin, every line might mean another cup of rice. Sweat trickled down her forehead, her small body trembling from both hunger and nerves. A boy, no older than 6, approached her shyly, holding out a 2-peso coin. Liza's eyes lit up, and she whispered, "Salamat." That little kindness fueled her to keep going, even as her father's anxious gaze reminded her that it wasn't enough. For hours she sang, until her voice cracked like broken glass. The crowd shifted, people came and went, some pitying her, others looking past her as though she were invisible. Every rejection stung, every coin lifted her hope only to crush it again with its insufficiency. When the night deepened and the neon lights flickered on, her song turned from melody into plea. Each line was no longer just performance, it was pain itself, pouring out in a voice too young to carry so much suffering. The night grew darker, the streets quieter. The once busy carinderia had closed, and the market stalls were shutting down one by one. Liza's legs wobbled under her tiny frame as she clutched the guitar close, sitting on the cold pavement. Her father crouched nearby, counting the handful of coins they had collected. His face fell. It was barely enough for dinner. Liza wanted to cry, but she had no tears left. She had sung until her throat was raw, until her voice was nothing but a whisper. Her hands shook from exhaustion, her stomach gnawed at itself, and for the first time that day, she allowed herself to feel the hopelessness pressing in on her. Just then, a woman in her late 30s walked by. She wore a simple blouse, carried groceries in one hand, and had a kind but tired face. She slowed down when she noticed Liza slumped on the ground. At first, she hesitated. After all, in a city like Quezon, children begging or singing for coins were not an uncommon sight. But something about the girl made her stop. She approached gently. "Anik," she said softly, kneeling down. "Are you okay?" Liza looked up, startled. No one had asked her that all day. She opened her mouth to speak, but only a croak came out. The woman immediately handed her a bottle of water and a piece of bread from her grocery bag. Liza took it with trembling hands, whispering, "Thank you." Her father watched silently, unsure of what to do. The woman studied him for a moment, then turned her attention back to Liza. "Why are you out here this late? You should be home, or in school." The word struck Liza like lightning. School. She had almost forgotten what that word felt like. She lowered her gaze, ashamed. "I have to sing. If I don't, we won't eat," she whispered. The woman's eyes filled with compassion. She placed a gentle hand on Liza's shoulder. "You have a beautiful voice, Anik. But you should sing because you love to, not because you are forced to." Liza blinked back tears. No one had ever said that to her before. To her, singing was survival, not joy. And yet, in that fleeting moment, the idea of singing for happiness, for freedom, seemed almost possible. The woman reached into her bag again, pulling out a few bills. She pressed them into Liza's father's hand. "Feed your daughter tonight, but promise me something, let her dream. Don't let the streets steal her childhood." Her father, overwhelmed, could only nod. For the first time that night, Liza felt seen, not as a nuisance, not as a beggar, but as a child with a voice, with a dream. As the woman walked away, Liza clutched the bread in her hands, whispering silently to herself, "One day, I will sing, not because I must, but because I want to." And though her path remained uncertain, hope had found her on that dark street in Quezon City. It was small, fragile, like a candle in the wind, but it was enough to keep her going.